I used to think cracks in windows were a metaphor. A neat way to describe how something could be broken but still holding on, barely. That was before the morning I called Clearview Glass to fix the window in our kitchen. A small fracture, spidering from the bottom corner where a rogue baseball had ricocheted off the neighbor kid's bat. Harmless, at first. Nina, my wife, answered the door when the repairman arrived. I was working from home that day, but tucked away in my office upstairs, buried in meetings and emails. I remember her calling up to me, "Babe, the window guy's here." Her voice was chipper. Normal. That everyday tone that doesn't make you think twice. The guy's name was Brett. Late 30s, maybe 40, tall, lean with sun-worn skin and that confident blue-collar ease that came with knowing you were good at something practical. I nodded when he waved at me through the hallway, holding his toolbox like a soldier reporting for duty. "Kitchen window, right?" he asked. Nina answered for me. "Yup. It's just the one, but I figured it couldn't hurt to check the rest. You know, while you're here." I smiled and returned to my office, thinking nothing of it. I remember the sound of the drill, the occasional clink of glass, and low murmurs of conversation floating up through the vents. I remember thinking, at least someone's fixing things around here. That evening, Nina was unusually quiet. She cooked dinner, humming a tune I didn't recognize. Not our usual playlist. She seemed light. The kind of light that comes after letting go of something heavy. I didn't ask questions. I should have. Over the next week, I noticed little things. A text she quickly swiped away. A phone call she took on the porch. Her sudden interest in showering twice a day. I chalked it up to stress or the new Pilates class she joined. Then, one night, as I sat on the couch flipping channels, I saw her phone buzz on the kitchen island. A name flashed on the screen, Brett, window guy. My stomach flipped. Who saves a contact like that unless there's more to the story? Curiosity morphed into suspicion. I picked up her phone, something I swore I'd never do, and opened the message. "Next time I'll bring my work gloves. Or maybe just let you peel off the rest yourself, winky face." I froze. My brain tried to rationalize. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe I was misunderstanding. But then I scrolled up. The texts were laced with innuendos, half-revealed truths, and pictures, nothing explicit, but enough to make the truth sink in like a cold anchor in my chest. I confronted her that night. She didn't deny it. "It was just one time," she whispered. "It happened the day he came to fix the window. It just happened." I wanted to scream. I wanted to break every window in the house. Instead, I sat down at the table, feeling smaller than I ever had. "You invited him in," I said quietly. "You watched him work and decided, what? That fixing our window gave him permission to ruin everything else?" Nina looked down, her face a portrait of shame and something else I couldn't name. Regret, maybe. Or detachment. "I don't know why," she said. "I didn't plan it. He was just easy to talk to. He made me feel seen. I felt invisible here. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My thoughts were loud enough. The cracks in the kitchen window had nothing on the ones in our marriage. I slept in the guest room that night. The silence between us more deafening than any argument. The next morning, Nina made coffee like she always did. She placed my mug on the counter, black, 2 sugars, and didn't say a word. The silence between us had a new texture. Heavy. Brittle. Like a cracked window just waiting to give way. I hadn't slept much. I stared at the ceiling most of the night, playing out scenarios in my head. What I should have said. What I wanted to do. Whether I could ever trust her again. The questions churned, unrelenting. She finally broke the silence around noon. "I ended it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Right after you found out. I blocked his number. It's done." I didn't look at her. But it happened. She nodded, slowly. "Yes. We sat at opposite ends of the couch, a stretch of fabric between us that felt like an ocean. She told me more than I wanted to hear. How Brett had flirted. How she let herself respond. How one moment led to the next until she was pressed against the kitchen counter, with the smell of sweat and sawdust filling the air. She told me he was rough, but attentive. That he said things she hadn't heard in years. It was stupid, she said. It wasn't love. It was attention. I could barely breathe. You had my attention. She looked at me then, eyes glistening. Not like before. That hurt more than I expected. Because she wasn't entirely wrong. Life had gotten mechanical. I worked late, buried in screens and deadlines. We went to bed at different times. We stopped talking about dreams and started talking about groceries. Still, betrayal wasn't the answer. Over the next week, we lived in a strange limbo. We tiptoed around each other, saying only what was necessary. I couldn't bring myself to touch her, and every time she looked at me with that guilty softness in her eyes, I felt like I was suffocating. On Friday, I packed a small bag and left. I stayed with my brother for a few days. He didn't ask questions, just handed me a beer and offered the spare room. That's when I started thinking clearly. It wasn't about Brett. Not really. He was just the crack that let all the pressure burst through. It was about what had been building for months, maybe years. Distance, resentment, feeling unseen. Both of us had failed, in our own ways. When I came back home on Monday, Nina was on the porch, waiting. She stood up as I got out of the car, like she'd been holding her breath the entire weekend. I understand if you want a divorce, she said, voice trembling. I looked at her. Really looked. And for the first time, I didn't see the woman who betrayed me. I saw the woman I married. Flawed, scared, and hurting. Like me. I don't know what I want, I said honestly. But I know this: if we're going to try, it has to be a new beginning. Not just patching up the cracks. She nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. I want to try. I really do. So we began again. Slowly. We went to therapy. We had raw, uncomfortable conversations. We stared at our wounds instead of hiding them. Some days were better than others. The kitchen window was eventually replaced. Not by Brett, of course. I did it myself this time. And as I slid the new pane into place, I thought about how sometimes things have to shatter before you can see them clearly.